Welcome to our second webinar, where we try to answer all your questions about the platform. We'll cover a few topics as well. We'll pause on 2 occasions to look at the questions you've put to us already or questions that come online. I'd like to introduce 2 members of the team. Patrick is the manager of IT. He's been involved with us for the last 3 years, been responsible for building the platform you see today, and he will be assisting us today with any of the text or your text comments and assisting us in any technical aspects. Also with us is Joanne from Queensland. Joanne has been with us over the last couple of years and been responsible for all the help menu, the educational material, and most recent times the material on advertising that you see. So we'll try to talk to Joanne a little bit later in the webinar, time permitting. Before we get started, we've got to cover the legalities. So let's go to a disclaimer. Need to make sure that everyone understands that the presentation offers no personal or specific advice, that it's of general information nature only and must not be construed as being financial advice. We have given no consideration to your individual investment objectives. And given that trading investment carries inherent risks, that everyone should be obtaining professional advice that covers their circumstances and objectives. We make no representation that any part of what we present today is likely to achieve similar profits to those illustrated. And we must warn you that past performance in any trading system is not necessarily an indicative of future results, although it's about the only tool we can to measure past performance. And if you are using our site, if you're a member or if you're not a member and you're using our site, please read our full terms and conditions before entering. With that covering the legalities, I want to give a bit wrap of the market before we get any further. In the meantime, if you do have any questions, please type them. We'll review those questions as we pause. So let's just go to our website, and we just log in as demo mode, and we are in our website. We'll just look at the global indices first, and as we look at the international tab, we see that Friday the Dow and S&P 500 were positive, just slightly, but I guess a lot of people fear the market. They always fear that the market will dive. I have a view that as long as the market is above the support line, it's bullish, and I consider the markets to be fairly bullish right now. And we'll look at the Australian market and Australian sectors in a minute. But just let's look at these graphs very quickly, and just to see what the graphs are telling us. So actually we will go to international indices, and we'll look at the Dow Jones first. Okay, and here we are. As you can see, the Dow has been bullish since, just scroll up. Let's see when the last time it's been bullish, since about January 2016. So we've got about 18 months of an uptrend with some consolidation points. And if we zoom into the current period and we bring it into line, we've got some consolidation periods around here. It's still above this. What was resistance is now support around about 21,130. And even though it's been up and down at this level, it's still above this line, and I consider this to be bullish. This is the minor support. The major support is down below 20,400, which is this line here. And if we look at the next chart, which is the S&P 500, I expect to see something very similar. Okay. And as you can see, very similar trend with some uptrends and some consolidation lines, which are these flood areas here. We're still above this minor support at 2,400, with a major support for the S&P 500 sitting around about 2325 or thereabouts. Okay, so the international market's still bullish. We don't have any events that are forming risk other than the the US Reserve maybe adjusting their money in the market. So I guess interest increasing. So that's some negative factors that would take some time to play out. Just let's look at the Australian market. We start from the dashboard and we can go through and access through our watch list. And we'll look at the All Ordinaries and the ASX 200, the two major indices. And again, I consider this to be fairly bullish. The uptrend still intact. I guess we had to make an adjustment here for the uptrend. We're still above, for the All Ordinaries, we're still above the minor support, which is this line here. Minor resistance, and then we have the major resistance just below the 6,000 level, and the support, this should be a blue line. So just something has gone wrong with my eyesight here. That should have been a blue line. It's being a support of 5,600. And if we change to close these charts, we've got a few too many charts open, and we'll look at the ASX 200 from one of our watch lists, XJO. Again, expect to see something very similar. Okay, we've got the color right here. Minor support around about 5,680. Minor resistance of 5,830. And if we bring it down, we have major resistance. I guess we haven't been there for quite some time, 6,000 or thereabouts. The best we could achieve is 5,950 in recent times. But we're still on the uptrend, and we expect now that we are out of the May-June period, the traditional period where some corrections in the market do occur as a result of end of financial year corrections, both in writing off losses and profits taken into account. Now we should be able to see the market rally. As long as it stays above these levels, I consider that to be positive. If we drop below these minor levels and similarly below 5-6, then the trend will change. It will be in a negative trend. Having done the major indices, I'd just like to very briefly look at close this and we go back to a dashboard. And we'll look at the sectors, which is where I like to start my analysis from. And we'll just put some markings on here to have a look at, we'll change the color to blue. And I like to, if we look at the two major indices, they form the benchmark. That's the annual change and the month-to-date change. Very insignificant movement in the month of June. But if we look at the benchmark, it's been 8-9% in comparison to the internationals that we looked at earlier that are sitting around about 15 to 19%. So the areas that have performed well, anything above the 10% mark, and we'll mark those in blue. So quite a few sectors performing well. Okay. And the utilities. For the month, we'll look at the financials did reasonably well with 2%, the healthcare at 5%, information technology slightly up for the month, and I guess the rest are minus. So, and we have discretionaries also at 1%. We'll just mark a few negatives, and I want to make some comments about this before we move on. So the negatives for the year, 10% with the real estate stocks, the telecoms are minus 26%, and obviously the consumer and energy slightly below the 9% or so average movement for the year for the indices. In the monthly, we have the energy sector well down at minus 7%, the resources down minus 2%, industrials 1.5%, REITs up minus 5%, consumer staples, telecommunications, and the utilities. So a lot of negatives, but interesting to note that the negatives of just the daily reflect just about what happened for the month. So the last day of the month, we had 2%, for example, in some of these figures here, and that pretty much the major movement for what happened for the month was reflected in the last day of the month as those adjustments took place. I consider that to be fairly bullish, given that we expect a correction during the months of May, June. We reduced our exposure during that period. We started increasing the exposure through the middle of June onwards in preparation for the market taking a better position in July. But I guess the market will tell us the direction it's taking. We've got to look at the support resistance to see if we are between the two. If we break on the upside or the downside, then we confirm the trend is retained or is changed. Having looked at the sectors, I want to talk a little bit about the new features, and then we'll open it up for questions if we have any coming through. So let's look at some of our new features we've been looking at and working on. The last webinar, we spoke about the editors charts categories, which are now completed. They've been working for over a month now, and we'll have a quick look at those in a minute. We just recently released the sector and industry classifications. We completed that ahead of time. Last week, we launched the new update towards the end of the week, and if you haven't seen it already, we'll be taking you through that today. You may also have seen that we have made some progress in video tutorials and webinar recordings. They're now present in the help sections, so this will be in progress for a few months as we populate that area. And a new project that we'll be working on, that will be a major project that will take us quite a few months, is a portfolio manager. That's something we'll be working on in the future, and we'll keep you up to date as far as those developments are concerned. So let me move on to the sector and industry classifications. And before I go to our website and show you how to use those, I just want to cover the sectors, the codes, and what they all mean. I'll come back to this slide in a second, but just to show you where they all are and what we're talking about is, if we go to our Explorer and ASX equities, or any of your watch lists for that matter, you see that we have introduced a new column called sector, as I indicate here. And this is the 6th column with some codes in here. And I want to talk about these codes and how we operate. So let me go back to a coding and explain that the first two letters of this code describe the sector. So EN for energy, MA for materials, IN for industrials, and so forth. Fairly easy to understand. So the first two describe the sector. The numbers behind that explain the industry within the sector. So within the energy sector, for example, EN11, 11 stands for equipment and services, 12 for oil, gas, and consumables. And if you want to see how they relate when you're in the platform, and I'm going to switch to that now. So within the platform, if you put your mouse over the particular sector indices, you see that IN21 reflects industrials, commercial services and supplies. HC21 is healthcare, biotechnology, and consumer discretionary household durables. So it's very easy to follow. So how we use this? How we use this is by filtering the sectors that you want to include in your sorting. If, for example, we want to start with a blank sheet and just analyze one of these sectors, and we analyze utilities, then we set the filter just to utilities. And we now have 27 stocks out of the 1900 available stocks in the whole market that we can actually sort this by tapping on the name itself of the column, the sector, so to sort them in preference, ascending or descending. And here we have all the sector 15s, which indicate independent power renewable producers, and, for example, electric utilities. If we want to add another sector, if we want to add, for example, energy to that, then we now have both energy and utilities. We have 225 assets to filter. So then we can apply our other filters, such as the liquidity column, we can apply our liquidity. And if we're not interested in seeing some of the smaller ones, we can apply as usual. I always use the 0.5, $500,000 traded per day. And we now can actually reduce our assets down to 22. So a lot of those companies that we looked at were very small and not worth looking at. So now we're looking at 22 companies within the utilities and the energy sector. We can then further apply things like our alerts to see which ones are in a bullish trend. We can see which ones belong to one of the categories that we chart for. So you can very quickly narrow down the sectors and the stocks within the sector that you're interested in. Let me go back to our presentation mode, and similar as we've done with the editors chart categories, we explain that the color dots have a meaning and they represent a category that we keep charts for. And these are scans we've done. Some of these categories are, with the exception of the major stock and indices, which is a fixed category, all the rest change on a weekly basis. We update them weekly, and we update the graphs as well as the stocks within that on a weekly basis. And you can see which stocks have entered or exited each list if you go to the TA charts page on the menu. Go back and highlight that. Under TA talk, you'll be able to go and see the list under TA charts. And each one of those lists has entries and exits shown, and the performance of the select trades found in a PDF file. Okay, back to the charts. And one more thing I want to cover before we go to the question time is how these things can help you. I think we've very self-explanatory that the sector classes, you can exclude non-performing sectors from your analysis or evaluate the sectors of your choice. If you're looking for stocks that have been underperforming, you can certainly look at them individually, or you can look at the performing sectors. You can sort sector and industry classes. You cannot filter them, but you can only sort them in an order to be able to look at them in groups within your list. We talk about the editors charts and how they can help you with the 240 stocks that we manually adjust. We put a support resistance and we illustrate the trading opportunities, not just in the select trades, but in all editors charts, in all 240 stocks that we covered on a weekly basis. And we covered the 6 categories, and we'll look at those in a minute when we look at some examples. So these are the 2 major features that we've added in the last month, and we think they're very helpful. We certainly use them to do our trading, and I hope you can find them very useful in your application as well. So having covered all that, I want to look at some questions, and we had some questions put to us already, and I'll kick off with those, and then we'll have a look at what else is coming through. There might be some duplication, just bear with us. Which strategy performs the best? It was one of the questions Mike asked. We have tested all strategies, and we find that the short-term strategy performs far better than the others. But it comes with a lot of whipsawing, and that is not palatable to everybody. We prefer and we recommend the flex strategy, and this is the strategy we use for all our scanning and everything we do on the select trades, as well as we've tested all strategies, as I said, and we find that the short-term strategy performs better than flex, but it has its limitations because you need to be trading on a daily basis, and you need to keep an eye on those values. Most people may not be that way inclined, and therefore we believe the flex provides a much better tolerance to stay in the trade longer and monitor those values. And the long-term strategy, although it looks good on a chart, and if we look at the chart to see how those strategies reflect, and I'll just go wrong one, watch list. So if we are on any one of these stocks, we'll look at BHP, for example. I think we've got a screen back up and running as well. So apologies for that. Okay, now you should be able to see us and hear us. Just give us a confirmation, please, if you don't mind. A couple of you can see us and hear us. Thank you. We got you back on. Okay, so we're looking at AOG, and as you can see, the trade was adjusted from 358 up to 327, and we exited up at the high before the downturn. And we've made that decision because this trade, after having a runoff, decided to taper off again. We didn't want to stay in this trade. It should have kicked on. It's been hovering around for quite some time. It shouldn't be still sitting in that level. And we'll make the decision, and we'll adjust it, and we'll publish this on a weekly basis if we can. Now, you have an individual choice. This what we publish here are examples of trading setups. You don't have to enter every setup, and you don't have to stick with what we give you. You can certainly make your own choices. But we do try to show you in here where the support line, the resistance lines are, and where the high probability setup is. So if we entered somewhere above that blue line, which are DMA, the potential and the expectation is to get the profit line. But if we get it wrong, then that's our exit and that's our loss. In this case, it was adjusted lean, and we made that choice and we published that to everybody. Okay, any more questions for anybody? Let me give you a chance if you want to ask more questions. I'm going to switch back to some feedback that I require. We'll ask you guys to give us. It will really help us if you can. Just bear with us. No, we don't want to see that. And I'm going to put some questions on the screen. To mark these on the screen. And our first question for you today is, we want to know what is your preferred time and day to participate in future webinars. You can scroll down and there's an input box if you want to put any text for us. But it's just a matter of ticking one or more than one of those boxes. If you don't have a particular choice, you can tick all of them. That will give us an indication that you don't mind when we have it. If you have a particular time when you're available, then please make us aware of that. We'll try to make sure that we accommodate as many of you as possible. Obviously, we can't please everybody, but we'll try to accommodate. If we can, we'll always have the recordings of the webinar available, but it's always good to participate in live webinars, I think. So just please tick on these boxes here that you see on your screen. So it's the choices of early in the week, Monday or Tuesday, midweek, Wednesday or Thursday, or the weekends. And as far as time, the current time we had today was 11 to 12 Eastern Standard Time. The evening, if the evening suits you better, or some other time, and if you need some other time, please give us your text, scroll down below and just give us some input in your text box. I'll give it a few more seconds if you don't mind. And we'll close this and we'll ask you one more question. So okay. So I am going to give you a second question if you don't mind. And that is, might involve a bit more thinking. Second and third question, that's the final ones for today. We will ask you these questions. What is your preferred topic for future live webinar coverage? Would you like us to cover market analysis, more educational topics and the use of technical analysis, analyzing of the editor's charts, or some other topic you want to specify for us? And if you like a combination of those, please tick the boxes I'm just about to put on the screen for webinar topics. And here they are on the bottom of your screen. And we'll also put the features at the same time. And you have two boxes. Please give us also any text input in those two boxes on your screen. And when you finish, just press the save button to submit that. So the second question is to do with TED features. Are you happy with the current features and the progress we are doing so far this year for those that are members? And do you consider that we have too many features and we shouldn't stop developing and focus on what we got? Or do you want to see us develop more features? And if you want to do so, please specify what are the features you want to see. So we'll give you a minute or so to complete this if you can. That will help us enormously with our future planning. Okay, and if I'm about to close those off, so please complete as best as you can. That will help us. And if you are interested in all of those, please click all the categories and save. Thank you for doing that. Okay, a couple more questions coming through. Please give us more questions. We do have a few more minutes to go before we close off. One other thing I'd like to do is to invite Joanne, if she's about to tell us a little bit about what she's been working on. So let me just see if we can test the technology, if we can make it happen. Bear with us. Joanne, I hope you're there. Give me a sign if you're there. Good to hear. Let me see if we can get you on some audio. Okay. Joanne, you have to accept the audio. It's loading and you should be online. Jeff says, then all quiet. Jeff, can you still hear us? No sound, says Joanne. So we looks like we're having some issues with sound. Jeff says, yes, I can hear you, says Joanne. Okay. All right, so we got sound back on. Let's see if we had any more questions. I'm just scrolling back. Jeff says it's a good idea. Okay, we'll look at that and we'll talk to you about that, Jeff, for sure. Maybe we need to publish an alert when you are in and out of stock. Okay, we'll talk about that and we'll certainly look at your suggestion there and how we can implement those things. And I think we've now a lot of technical issues I can see. I'm scrolling through and trying to find questions. If I've missed you, I apologize. We'll try and get back to you again. If we've missed your question, we'll try and get to you by email. But if you've got a new question, please text us again and we'll try and do our best to answer it now. Okay, John, have thought of an offering broker service to people who want to trade editors' picks. Yes, John, we have a setup, trade copy service, which we do with Centra. We will be promoting the service in due course. We started it. We're still trying to add on some things in that before we fully approve it. But the idea behind the service is that if you don't have the time to do your own trades and you want to participate with a broker, we have a broker that we deal with, and this is our licensed source, Centra Wealth, and we will have a facility where you can open an account with them, and they will do your trading for you using the trade setups, and they will advise you. You will approve the setups, so I guess they will ring you or text you. You approve the setup and they do all the trades for you. It's a system that people that are very busy can utilize, and we'll be promoting that in due course. Neil asked, any interest in user group? I'm not quite sure. If you're referring, Neil, to having meetings, we've had a few meetings here in Adelaide with the local groups. I intend to expand that Australia-wide in the future as we build a customer base. But I guess we need support of all our members to build a base. Those have been with us for now through a couple of years of testing and the last 6 months of the platform. Know us very well, know what we offer, and they use the platform. As we build up our participants and our members, then we'll certainly have meetings around Australia. There's no other questions there. Before we finish off, oops, I haven't lost you. No. Before we finish off, I'd like to remind you that we do add new articles, and Joanne is the person that does a lot of this work, and we add a lot of articles into our sections of help and also the tutorials, and I'll take you there briefly to show you. So in Learning Center, for example, we do have quite a number of articles that can help you, and there's quite a number of trading strategies. A lot of these topics are recent position sizing, market depth, entries and exits. A lot of topics here that can actually go in and you have a lot more details that can help you if you're a newcomer. Also, we do have increased our promotional material through Facebook and Twitter in recent times. If you see our articles, if you like them, give us a like, share them with your friends, help us build a customer base, which helps us develop the platform further. Learning Center is excellent. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate your comment. So send us a note if we haven't answered your questions. If you've got any new questions, you can always send us an email. We'll try our best to answer it the same day.